I'd like you to picture in your head the TV character Doctor Who. Chances are we're all picturing someone who is dressed smartly. However, since Doctor Who has been played by several different actors, we're all probably picturing a different face. Some people's version of Doctor Who is David Tennant. Other people's version of Doctor Who is Tom Baker. Others grew up with Jon Pertwee. Are we all correct in picturing all of these different faces as the same person? Yes, for many different versions of Doctor Who exist. Those who grew up in the 70s are loyal to one Doctor, whereas those who grew up in the noughties are loyal to someone else. In a world of many religions, would it be fair to say the same about God? Some people's version of God might be Allah. Some others' version of God some others might be loyal to Vishnu. Others still might strongly insist that God is not a named individual, but is a spiritual force. Are they all right? Are these different versions of God all actually the same person? Is each culture's version of God equally true? Some would say yes. They would argue that each version of God is equally true, and each person's culture and opinions should be respected. But whereas this line of argument works in fiction, it doesn't work in the world of fact. There may be 13 versions of the fictitious character Doctor Who, but there's only one David Tennant. There may be 9 different versions of James Bond, but there's only one Ian Fleming. There may have been 11 different versions of Superman, but there's only one Christopher Reeve. Fictitious characters can have more than one identity, whereas real people only have one. The God of Christianity is very clear that he is not a product of man's imagination. He created mankind. Mankind did not create him. It says in the book of Isaiah, "For this is what the Lord says, He who created the heavens, he is God. He who fashioned and made the earth, he founded it. He did not create it to be empty, but formed it to be inhabited. He says, I am the Lord, and there is no other." I am the Lord, and there is no other. The God of Christianity is not a creation or invention of mankind. God was not created by people looking for a reason to explain the world around them. God was not invented to give people purpose and meaning to their lives. God declares himself to be the one and only creator of all things. All of the gods are a work of fiction. Now, this might sound a bit disrespectful. In one sense, it's right to be respectful and sensitive when dealing with the deeply held beliefs of other people. However, if my child broke her leg and I told her that she needed a doctor, I'd not be doing her any favors by allowing her to hug the TV. Her version of a doctor might be a fictitious character who appears on the TV every Saturday night. But despite this doctor's claims to cure all problems, Doctor Who is a work of fiction that cannot help. I'd want to pull my daughter away from the TV screen sensitively. I might do a broken leg more damage than good if I used force. But if I truly loved my daughter, I'd want her to meet the only doctor who could help. Not a work of fiction, but a work of fact. Jesus Christ made many bold claims that he was the only one who could truly help us. Jesus claimed that he was the only one who could help us know God personally. Jesus once answered, "I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Jesus claimed that he was the only one who could give us life after death. Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die." Jesus claimed he was there at the beginning of history and will be there at the end. Jesus said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. The history books don't allow us to throw away these claims of Jesus as a work of fiction. Jesus Christ was a real person in history, and the records of his words were recorded by his authorized biographers very soon after his death. What's more, hundreds of people saw Jesus rise from death, an event that really made people pay attention to his words. So where do we go from here? Well, I'd strongly advise that you read up on this Jesus who made such bold and unique claims. If his claims were true, you certainly cannot afford to ignore them. Jesus' life and words can be found in the biblical books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Why not read them for yourself? And when you read them, remember to get your genre right. When the science fiction story War of the Worlds was first read over the radio, people panicked thinking it was a real radio news announcement. As a result, the police were inundated with phone calls from people in panic. And yet when people ignored the real news that a tsunami was heading towards Asia, the consequences were sadly catastrophic. Knowing if something is claiming to be fact or fiction completely changes how you read it. Facts demand a response. Fiction demands nothing. And though it would be much easier to dismiss God and Jesus as inventions of man, neither of them will allow it. I am the Lord, and there is no other. Apart from me, there is no God. The God of Christianity is very clear that he is not the product of man's imagination. And Jesus was very clear that he was the only way we could get to know this God for ourselves. Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.